With the return of local events, of course, everyone is looking for that one deck to bring to their locals that they may not have had a chance to play at a regionals because of the time limit constraint. Today, I'm going to be going over some of my picks for some league challenges and league cups. What's up, everyone? Kenny from Team Oyster, and today we're going to be looking at some of the decks that I would pick for League Cups or League Challenges. Now, a lot of these are based off of EUIC results that we know of right now, Japanese tournaments that we're running around along with a couple other tournaments, because I know a couple other tournaments currently have the next sets, so we may have to like adapt to that and just kind of like not really bother with that, and online tournaments that have been playing since Scarlet and Violet's release. So we're going to be looking at arguably the best deck in format. It is Lugia. Lugia, ever since its release, we all knew that this card was going to be broken with Archeops to pair, Archeops being able to attach special energy from the deck. With the loss of Aurora Energy, Amazing Rare Yveltal, Powerful Colorless Energy, Speed Lightning, Heat Fire, even Hiding Dark, the deck lost quite a lot. It lost its main core, but what it didn't lose was the Single Strike and Rapid Strike pieces, and Single Strike being the one that stacks damage. Of course, for things that Lugia V Star cannot knock out, is the most common way of playing Lugia. Of course, it has also very, very good type weaknesses. Tyranitar V being able to knock out stuff like Gardevoir and Mew VMAX, and Stonjourner being able to take out the Miraidon deck, along with a couple other ones that are floating around. It's also a fairly good one prizer that you could charge it for 3 energies. Baby Yveltal can even take the slot of Tyranitar when it needs to be. Of course, recent inclusions of Lugia, they didn't really play Radiant to begin with, but recently they started adding Radiant Serena just to make the Lost Box matchup a little bit easier. They also started to add stuff like Judge to replace Marnie, Professor Burnett to get out that Turbo Archeops by turn 2, so that it not only puts you an edge in the mirror, but it just adds a piece of consistency. And the new card Mesa Goza. Mesa Goza is a very good stadium card in this deck. A lot of people can like argue and say, oh, no, not really, because Mesa Goza could flip tails, and then your whole, it just falls apart. But it is inevitably the most consistent. You could argue Tower of Darkness too, but you don't really want to draw into those pieces. You want to have a fair shot at being able to search for your deck for any card you want. Just a 4/4 Lugia straight. And then another interesting card that Lugia wasn't really playing before was Regenerative Energy, which is another card which hurts Lost Box a lot. I tried to look for the list, ended up getting top 4, or top 8 or top 4, and I just couldn't find it. So by the time this video is posted, it's probably going to be out there and overshadows this one. But that is the Lugia deck for this one. Next, we're going to be looking at the Miraidon list that ended up doing very, very well. I believe even winning the event in Japan. This was a Miraidon Magnezone V-Star build. This was a lot weirder than I expected, but it made sense in the end. One of my locals and former members of Team Oyster, Max, he has been messing around with Magnezone V-Star for however long I can think of, and he's just been a firm believer of, it's a fairly decent card. It's not bad, I will say, just being a lightning Pokemon where the first attack can actually knock out Manaphy's. That's like one of the best parts about the Magnezone V, is against Lost Box, you can drag up a Manaphy with Magnetic Tension, and then it hits it for weakness, so it instantly knocks it out, so it's a free boss every single time, knocking out Manaphy's. And then the second attack also spreads. The V-Star attack spreads on Magnezone V-Star, which is insane. It just knocks out 2 Comfys right away. It can knock out a Radiant Crit Engine on Comfy. It gets problematic really quick, along with the fact that it does 180 and search your deck for 2 item cards. You can also start stacking damage on with Regieleki VMAX, which is pretty cool. Not with the V-Star, but with the V. Of course, and then the rest of the core is just pretty much a standard Miraidon list. Adding Drapion, probably because Mew is a lot more prevalent. And after this weekend, UIC, of course, we're probably going to see Mew have a lot more play than what it typically did, especially with top players like Pablo end up piloting it to a top 4 finish. Nothing really too crazy here. Like I said, the biggest change would be Marnie with Judge. For the format, EXP share is fairly interesting, but this is what early drafts of Miraidon were actually playing over stuff like Choice Belt and Double Forest Seal Stone. But list right now as, I think Robert Kinsman, I think that's who ended up getting top 8 with Miraidon. He ended up playing just Double Forest Seal Stone. I didn't see Choice Belts or EXP shares. So this is a pretty straightforward build for Miraidon, just with an interesting Magnezone, which I kind of like for dealing with Manaphy's and spreading a lot easier, and probably making the Lost Box matchup a lot easier. And here's the Gardevoir list. Of course, this is a lot different than Tord's list. This is just one that was running around online that was doing fairly well. It's not playing the worlds that we all know. I believe the Astral Radiance one that has 70 HP, and Teleport is the one that it is the one to play along with one of the 60 HP ones from Silver Tempest. The reason why I'm like thinking is because I think that's what the sets are. I'm not 100%. I just play the deck. So of course we're seeing that the Mirage Step currently is something that a lot of decks, a lot of lists have dropped. I've started to see just because it's a little. Why would you play this over like a discard draw 2, which is completely fair. But the Gardevoir deck in its entirety is super strong, and we can see players like Tord Raklev doing super well with it. He is currently in the finals as of recording this video. In about 6-7 hours, they should be playing. And Alex Szymanski in a Arceus, Duraludon, Alolan Vulpix matchup. So that'll be an interesting video, definitely to check out. The point of the Gardevoir list is to essentially build up a big Zacian V and take knockouts. It plays cards like Sky Seal Stone to put you up on an edge against V-Star deck like Goodra, Lugia, and Mew especially. To where you can just take 3 prize cards to 4 prize cards and then just mess up math as much as you possibly can. Of course, this list plays a copy of Klefki and Emergency Jelly, potentially to slow down Lost Box and all these other decks if they don't play Escape Rope right away, or you just open up a lone Klefki. Aside from that, the list seems just pretty standard. The Rescue Carrier is definitely something that's pretty interesting in the list. Double Temple of Sinnoh is also dependent on the meta. If you expect a lot of Lugia, Temple of Sinnoh is probably your best friend. If you expect a lot of Mew, same reason. But this is just commonly what Gardevoir lists will start to look like, is where they focus heavily on Zacian V, so they play multiple copies of it and just go for as much consistency as they possibly can. Now here's a Lost Tina. Of course, we saw some Arceus Tinas, but Lost Tina is the one that ended up doing the best in the end, I believe. This is not the list that ended up getting top 8. This is a list that ended up performing well at UIC, though. It's pretty interesting. It's just straightforward Giratina. You know, it's got the quad gates as opposed to 3, which is a lot of people I've seen argue 3 to 4 gates in Giratina. I think you should still stick with 4, though. Very minimal switch, which is also interesting to me. 3 card, 3 rope, 1 switch. But all in all, Giratina is a Lost Box deck, and Lost Box is a very strong archetype, and it always has been since it was released. So much so that people have gone way out of their way to just counter it with double Empoleon, quad Klefki, and other resources that just, hasn't even worked for the most part with them. So it's pretty interesting. And Giratina, one of the reasons why Giratina works is because it's just built-in consistency. The first attack can lost on stuff in case you're done with your turn, and you can't quite get there, or you're missing that little extra piece. It has access to Shred, which is a really good attack in general. Lost Impact doing 280, taking knockouts pretty much everywhere, and then the Star Requiem V-Star attack ending up knocking out anything on the field is just insane. So if you can't reach a certain number, Star Requiem will be able to knock it out. The Drapion inclusion in the list is also, I believe, meta dependent, but with Gardevoir running around and Mew running around, it's probably going to be in the list for quite a while. So Giratina is also a very good pick moving into League Cups and League Challenges. Then, of course, we're going to be talking about what a lot of people consider is the best deck in format right now is Goodra. Goodra is also a very good deck. It was good pre-format, but it just seemed a little off. The reason why it's good now is because it takes advantage of Lost Box in a lot slower of a meta. If you can't deal with it before they just start rolling, literally, and then they get off a timely Moisture Star, the game is over. They're going to sit there behind 2 Goodras, potentially even 1, and just swing. Oh, I'm walling 80 damage at a time. Oh, then I heal at a pivotal point. I'm just going boss at this game at this point of the game, and they're just chasing prize cards as fast as they can. They have access to just any engine, being Lost Box. I've seen Arceus engine this past weekend, so that's pretty interesting as well. We see in this list there's Defiance Band, which is a little awkward. We've seen a lot of people play Choice Belt, which I think is a little standard in my opinion, as opposed to Defiance Band, because Defiance Band doesn't do anything as long as you're behind on prize card, unless you are behind on prize cards. So I don't know, but all in all, Goodra is a very good deck moving forward into League Cups and League Challenges. Very straightforward, pretty easy to play for the most part, and it's just a very good anti-meta deck. Then, of course, we have the big bad standard format killer, as a lot of people like to call it, Mew VMAX. Mew's been a force ever since it was released. It has never dropped below a top 5 deck, ever. No matter what set comes out, it just seems like there's something new that just makes it better or makes it survive or just something. And that's something with the adaptations of the path, the quad DTE Pokestop build, then pronged the Forest Seal Stone Path to the Peak Lost Vacuum build, which we know now. Not a lot of Fusion Mews doing well. So just this is a straightforward Mew list that just ends up doing well at all events, just for the most part. We saw, I believe, 1 or 2 in the top 8 UIC. I know there was at least 1. But they were just, if your deck's not prepared for it, it just runs you over. Path Judge is a lot for a lot of people. Roxanne Path is even extremely... Roxanne Path is probably the killer combo of the format. If you don't have something that draws you out of Roxanne, like V-Barrel or like Curlius Refinement immediately, it's really hard to deal with. And Mew just swinging for a ton of damage, being able to conserve like power tablets, stuff like that, just really doesn't help the cause that this deck is a powerhouse in every single tournament it goes to. So I would say this is an extremely safe pick for a League Challenge or a League Cup, even for beginners, because there's a Mew battle deck that if you kind of put it together and then if you get like 2 Mew battle decks and put them together for the most part, you essentially have this deck. There are, of course, cards you are missing, like Silene Judge Path, but maybe Lost Vacuum and Force. I know for a fact Force Seal Stone isn't in the set, but like everything else is pretty much in that box. And then we have probably, this is the last deck, but this is by far one of my favorite rogue decks. Ben Merritt can also say the same thing. This is Inteleon Urshifu. Of course, prior to this, a lot of people were questioning Rapid Strike Urshifu's viability. Of course, sniping in general is very, very good, but it's like, there's Manaphy in the format. Manaphy kind of scares it. It's the same reason why, it was decent when Mew was around because of Mew's bench barrier, but like, why was it, why would it be good now if Manaphy is around, especially with it being 70 HP and not 60, so you can't just go quick shooting Yoga Loop, like, you know. But thanks to Inteleon being able to go double gunner, and Radiant Alakazam and Yoga Loop, you're able to just instantly knock out Manaphy's that way, to then go into rapid flows. You in this format, it's a little bit slower, like I said, so you can get away with stuff like that. You also have access to Tower of Water to consistently retreat all of your Pokemon, except for Radiant Alakazam and Drapion and Lumineon. But this deck is extremely strong. The biggest issue with it is consistency. So if somebody were to figure out a pretty consistent list, you got it. I believe there was one that lost its winning in at EUIC, but was like doing really, really hot. I believe they were like X and 2 at the beginning of by round 14. Like, they were just stomping people. And I believe they lost to a Miraidon, which is kind of a sketchy matchup for the deck, depending on how you draw. But if you get double Urshifu set up, there's really nothing they can do about that, as long as you don't over commit to like Inteleons, or just, like I said, start really awkward. You also have access to Cheryl, which is one big part of the deck. But aside from that, these are all decks that are good for regionals. These are all decks that are good for cups in League Challenge primarily, though. Because League Challenges, League Cups, 30 minutes best of 1. Regionals, best of 3, 50 minutes. So sometimes decks, you'll see like Control isn't on here. Straight Lost Box is kind of like a time-consuming deck in itself as well. So it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, you know, these decks are extremely good, but if they're extremely time-consuming, like, it's not really meant to be for League Cups and League Challenges. You kind of want a faster-paced deck, unless you're a faster-paced player like myself, in order to pilot those decks to success, so you don't end up with a bunch of ties or end up losing in cut. I thank you all for watching. Please subscribe and like for more content. If you would like to see something specific, like a certain deck or certain, you know, playthroughs on there, please drop it in the comment section below. I do try my hardest to bring quality content, fun content, even some rogue decks, as we saw. The video is probably going to be over here, so thank you so much for the support throughout those videos. We gained probably about 30 subscribers in the past 2 weeks, which is just kind of beyond me to really put it, because we started from the bottom up on this channel and we're just continuously growing, and I really appreciate everyone for viewing and sharing our videos. So until then, see everyone later.